We're recording. Hi everybody, Julia Usher here. I'm back with another competition Q&A, and this one's extra special because we're not only answering your questions, but I'm also introducing you to a very special guest, one of our gold sponsors. Before we meet her, just a couple of words about my competition for those who might not be familiar with it. First of all, this year it's online and open to anyone, anywhere in the world, which I love. I love inclusivity. So we're looking forward to your entries no matter where you are. When I say online, it simply means that the rules are posted online, and once you get your entry all together, you'll be taking photos of it and a quick little video that will then be uploaded into a database that our judges review. It's a great low-risk way to get involved with competition because no one needs to know you entered. It's not like you're putting your entry on a competition table for the world to see. You can sneak it into a database, our judges look at it, and they'll give you some great feedback in the process. A little bit about the schedule. The competition registration actually opened at the end of March. Rules posted a little bit earlier in February. So if you know of my competition, you may actually be preparing an entry now. If you don't, no worries. The entries are not due until end of June. So there's still plenty of time to create, which is actually one of the reasons we're here today, is to clarify any questions that you might have that we've been hearing, to encourage you to participate in the competition. There are lots of good reasons for doing so. I'll touch on those briefly and then we'll introduce our guest. Why compete? Learning and growth, in my mind, is paramount. We have a number of world-class judges that represent all walks of cookie life, and the thing that they're most committed to is giving you feedback. Our guest is going to talk a lot about the judging experience. She's not one of our judges this year, but she has a wealth of judging experience that comes to bear on this competition as well. So she'll be providing a lot of advice about how to think about the judging process and the type of feedback you'll get. The competition, as I said, is quite low risk, particularly because it's online. It's a great way to get your foot in the door if you're a beginner. No one needs to know you entered. And if you happen to win, of course, we're happy to shout about it as well. Last but not least, the prizes are really extraordinary, particularly this year. I have raised, through the help of a number of sponsors, over $25,000 in prizes, which is record-breaking for this competition. 9,000 of that, a little bit over 9,000, is actually cash, which can be distributed anywhere in the world. The rest of the prizes are digital prizes. They're not physical prizes, so they're things like gift certificates and coupons to websites, which can also be easily translated anywhere in the world, making this hopefully a real benefit for those competing outside of the United States. So with that said, I'm going to turn to our special guest, who, as I said, is not only a judge extraordinaire, she's an incredible cookie decorator, cake decorator, and just happens to be one of my gold sponsors. That means that she's one of the people or companies that's contributed to the highest level of the competition, and for that I am most grateful. So we are going to move on to the next slide and give her a big reveal. Welcome, Susan. It's Susan Trianos of Learn to Cake with Susan Trianos. And she is going to share with us a little bit about her. I just want to say that she recently received the Sugar Hero Award at the American Cake Awards at Sofo. One of her most recent judging experiences, I think, was also at Sofo. But I first got to know her years ago, I think it was in 2013 or 2014, at the Oklahoma State Sugar Arts Show. I didn't really get to know her there. I just admired her from afar because she was the competitor that was consistently placing in Carrie's competition. So I was really impressed, and I'm thrilled now to call her friend and to also have her participating in such a major way in this competition, which is near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Susan and have her more fully introduce herself, because I know I didn't do her justice.
I think you did me great justice, but thank you, and congratulations on your Icon Award at the American Cake Awards as well.
Oh, thanks.
Both kind of like, oh my gosh, we couldn't believe it, and it was, amazing and weird, and but congrats to you too. Again, I'm Susan Trianos, and I have been in this industry for, I think this is my 37th year. I started my career working at a manufacturing facility, and we made custom cookies for, I'm in Toronto, so the Toronto Zoo, McDonald's, Chuck E. Cheese, even Disney. So my career actually started with cookies, decorated cookies, and then morphed into cake. And I'm kind of falling back into my role in cookies again. So my career started doing just that. And then at the ripe old age of 19, I owned and operated a custom cake shop in Toronto. And it was a world renowned shop. Princess Diana and Charles' wedding cake for Canada, all the Commonwealth countries made a wedding cake, was made in
Wow.
that shop. So when it went up for sale, I did whatever I needed to do because I wanted to run my own business and I was very ambitious. Got a loan and operated that business for about 10 years. From there, I moved on and worked for Wilton Industries in sales, a little bit of merchandising, and first started teaching with Wilton. And my career then moved to working with General Mills in Pillsbury, where again I was in sales, and I also ran the U.S. Bakeries and Food Service Test Kitchen in Canada. So there was a U.S. test kitchen and a Canadian one. I reported into the U.S., so they kept me very busy. Really busy. I worked in sales, and when I was bored at the desk, I went to the test kitchen and flip flop back and forth. Um, I've also been an instructor at a culinary arts college, teaching wedding cakes and cookies and things like that. And now my main focus is teaching. I have an online school. I do in person classes. I teach at cake shows. Um, Cookie shows, and I have a small online store as well. It's I say small because I don't carry everything. I carry all the tools that I love and use personally, and just help my students there to get their supplies when I
Mhm.
teach a class. So that's sort of my background. It's a long
Incredible,
one. My
really.
career in cake and cookie, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but yeah. So a little Julia touched on us meeting for the very first time at the Oklahoma State Sugar Art Show. Um, Prior to that, I did enter a lot of cake competitions, and always seemed to do well because I sort of came up with a plan and figured a lot of the times you don't know who your judges are going to be. Sometimes you do. And if you have that knowledge, find out what those judges like, what they appreciate. I always looked at what the judging criteria was. So if, I number one, follow the rules,
Mhm.
but checking the criteria and designing my piece around what part of the competition is worth the most points, whether it's number of techniques or whether it's the execution of those techniques. And I came up with sort of like a holy trinity of things to check off my list when I was creating a competition piece. And it really worked. When I followed those three rules, I went from placing most of the time to placing all of the time, and most of the time winning as well, taking first place. And as a judge, I use those same criteria. It's what I look for as a judge. And
Mhm.
I'm going to share those with everybody.
Great.
And hopefully, my tips will help you develop your plan and put some nice cookies on your table to photograph for
Can I
this
interject
competition.
for one sec? Um,
Yeah.
We interviewed, or rather, Susie Jacobs, a past competitor, did a really nice video for us last week, and she talked about getting started with competing. And you're hitting on many of the same points. For her, and initially it seemed kind of intimidating, but once she set out the plan, once she read the rules, it provided that kind of structure for her that she then built her piece around, and it stripped away a lot of the intimidation factor. So I love the fact that it kind of plays into what you're saying, but continue.
Yeah. Some of the things that I'm going to recommend are, um, again, reading the rules. I've been in competitions where I came in first place because the person who should have been in first place didn't follow the rules. And two things happened. That person was really not happy. And I wasn't either because I didn't really feel like I deserved it. So the easiest way to lose points is by not following the rules. So read them 3 times, 4 times. If you have questions, I'm sure Julia or some of her judges would be more than happy to clarify those questions for you, because that would just be the worst thing. Is you did an amazing piece and spent all that time and energy um, to not come in where you should come in. Super disappointing.
And our rules for this competition are very clearly posted in that competition overview post I mentioned earlier. They're also linked to at the bottom of this video in the comments, well, in the description of the video. So I encourage people to go there. But I'm always reachable by email. So as Susan said, if there's a question about a rule, feel free to email.
And I appreciate that your rules are clear, because in the cake world, there are some unwritten rules that are never rules, and rules that apparently you're just supposed to know, which isn't fair for the beginner.
Right.
So that's it's clear. I have some questions about the competition itself. I don't know if you want me to ask those questions now, or
But
I
Susan,
go in.
wait a minute. You mentioned your Holy Trinity, and you mentioned reading the rules. But what were the other two? Did I miss them?
No, I haven't shared yet. I just don't know, can I go into those now and just kind of break?
Sure. I think since we're on the topic of preparing entries and judging, it makes sense.
So your entry, whether it's a 3D piece or, flat 2D cookies, whatever it may be, you want your cookies to really stand out. You want them to catch the judge's eyes. Those are the ones that are going to be remembered. Those are the ones that that the judges are going to come back to and look at again. And it's very easy to, well, it's easy, but it's not. But it's pretty easy to follow a certain criteria or patterns to create something that is eye-catching. Color, use of color, sizing. I have a list here. Color, composition, and overall balance. So your sizing should be balanced. Your colors should be balanced. Repeat colors and patterns to make things cohesive. And you really want your piece or your pieces to tell a story. So something that, Susie Jacobs' piece at Sofo was amazing. And I'm going to touch on her piece again in a second. So you really want to grab the attention of the judges. You also want to use a variety of techniques. So, paint something, model something. Obviously, you want to pipe something, whether it's your flooding should be perfect. If you can get some string work in there, some beautiful, beautiful lettering. The more techniques you have, the more you're giving the judges to look at, the more skilled you're going to appear to them. It's all really good things. But don't just put a ton of techniques on the cookie and then your cookie all of a sudden doesn't have that composition or balance anymore. Everything should make sense and work together well. But the execution of those techniques needs to be spot on, or to the very, very best of your ability. That's what competing's all about. It's pushing you to your absolute limit. And don't put a technique on there just to get it on there if it's not something that you excel at. Maybe part of your growth is learning that one technique, what maybe it's isomalt, and learning that for the following year's competition. But you really want to make sure that all of your techniques are clean, really, really clean. So that's really my holy trinity. Attention grabbing with balance and beautiful design and color. Or it could even be a lack of color. You can use black and white in a very creative way, but something that's really grabs attention, techniques, and the execution of those techniques. If you can do those three things, um, chances are you're going to fare quite well. So trying something new, and this is where I'm going to talk about Susie Jacobs, is she did this technique on her piece at Sofo that we didn't notice as judges when we first walked past her piece. We saw it was beautifully presented, and that grabbed our attention. But there was this one cookie with a tiny little boat, and behind that boat was a dimensional whale. It was like a almost like a sculpted whale cookie that with blue isomalt poured over top. And I'd never seen that before. And because the cookie had dimension and there were different depths of that blue isomalt, it really made that whale come to life. And we didn't notice it at first because it was, part of the background. But when we did, like, whoa, like it really just, it was over
I
the
didn't
top
judge
cool.
that competition, but I walked by it and I had the same reaction. So,
Yeah.
not only was her composition super eye catching, but she tried new stuff. She tried things that the
Yeah.
judges hadn't seen. So,
And it worked and it surprised us. We were
mhm.
everybody was blown away. So that was really cool. So don't be afraid to try new things. Innovation, I mean, we all learn from each other. And wouldn't it be great if you came up with something really cool that everybody was like, whoa, and you started a new trend, a new era? Oh, yeah. So that's my advice as a judge, and I know a lot of Julia's judges, and they're great people and so knowledgeable. And I would I would think that they're all looking for about the same things that
Yeah,
I look.
and we're going to be meeting I'm gathering the judges together probably next week. I think it's the 15th, actually, for anybody watching this video who wants to join that. It's going to be a collection of judges. We met with Lara Saporiti, who's one of our judges last week, and I asked them all to talk about what they look for, particularly in entries. Now, we have very defined judging criteria, and we all score against those criteria. So we try to stay as objective as possible, but and we are, and I think we are. But nonetheless, there are things that make an entry stand out, and there are things that make an entry not stand out. And those are the kinds of things that I think is useful to hear from the judges, getting particular examples, that sort of thing. And I would say, I would concur with Susan with everything she said. We look for all of those things in the context of our scoring setup. And yeah, very, very consistent with that. So I would also say that you don't worry if you don't come up with the next new technique. That's a cool thing. Again, it's a low risk kind of environment in which to test your skills. If it doesn't work out, you don't need to put it on your entry. If it does work out, great.
Yeah.
But don't get stressed about trying to do the next best thing. Just focus on where you are and building your skills to that next level. I think that's really what's most important. It's really a competition with yourself and less so with anybody else that might be entering.
Exactly. You are competing against yourself and the very best work you can possibly do. Yeah. And the judges are there to help you grow. They're there to encourage you. They're your biggest cheerleaders, but they're also there to give you constructive criticism, which is really difficult to do. but it's a big part of the growth. So take it with stride. Sometimes you don't always agree, and that's okay. But really keep in mind that they're there to help you grow and to get you to that next level. It's not to be, you did this wrong.
Exactly.
It's encouragement. It really is.
Like, I do this because I love seeing what people come up with. I love seeing them grow from competition to competition. I don't. We don't judge for any kind of punitive reasons. It's for the pure joy of it. So I encourage people to embrace that opportunity.
Yeah, it's for the community. And, I don't know about you, Julia, because you've been doing this forever as well, but sometimes I get a student that is like brand spanking new. And because they have a fresh mind, they think of things in different ways than we do and sometimes come up with the coolest stuff. So I love looking at the beginner work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got to say, I would probably say, if I could say this, that some of the beginner work is the most surprising.
Yeah.
For all the reasons you said, it's really the most unexpected, and again, just terrific to see.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. We've talked a lot about judging, and really value your experience there, because there's really no one that has more, honestly. But tell me a little bit about how you're sponsoring this year, what your prizes might be, just to give people a sense of what you're offering.
So, what I'm offering this year is for both the 2D and the 3D competitions in both beginner, intermediate, and advanced master. Everyone that comes in first, second, or third in any of those categories or divisions will get a 1 year subscription to my online school.
Wow.
Which is cookie stuff, cake stuff, baking, even candy. And what is, you might say, well, I'm not interested in cake, but there's so many cool cake techniques that can be transferred over to cookie and vice versa. So really some good information and stuff to watch. And then the first place winners of all 4 divisions will get a $100 shopping spree on my website. So there's, food coloring, tools, piping
Wow.
tips, all that.
Yeah, I thank you so
All
much
the
for that. I mean, when I think about the incredible prizes we have, it's really only because of you and the sponsors like you. The community really rallied around this competition. And again, I'm very, very grateful. I think our winners are going to be really grateful too.
Julia, it really speaks to who you are. The fact that you have gotten so much support from our community. It's who you are and what you're bringing to our community
Oh,
and how that has brought us forward. It's really it's you.
well,
So
well, I
thank
think
you
it's
for
more
all
than
you
you,
do.
but we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, no, it's the way you do things, the way you put it together. Everything's so professional. You're a good person. You rally for everybody in the community, and it's our way of supporting what you're doing and being a part of that.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. So I'm just going to make a technical comment here. Susan's video is lagging her voice by a fair bit in the recording. So, but all the nuggets are here. So I apologize if that's a little frustrating, but part of it is unlikely. It's due to connections, my slow computer, things that are kind of beyond my control. Um, so anyway, just I wanted to acknowledge that because it's pretty obvious to me, and it's probably obvious to some of you too. Okay, so what's next, Susan? Did you have questions for
So
me?
I actually do. So when you first announced the competition, I saw the theme, your Eras Tour, and I was like, wow, okay, what is this about? Because immediately I thought of Taylor Swift. Then I thought, no, Julia would not, for copyright reasons too, would not have a competition surrounding a theme like that. There's got to be something deeper. So can you please explain to all of us what that means
Okay.
Eras Tour.
I'll admit this question was kind of teed up in advance, so I have a slide that I prepared for it, but I'm going to try to give you guys a more specific example. So when we chose Your Eras Tour, it was actually the brainchild of Cindy Beltran, who is one of our judges. We wanted a theme that would hopefully resonate globally insofar as people would just recognize what it is we were talking about. And most people know Taylor Swift, and most people know that she's had this very significant world tour which is centered around her various albums, which are centered around various themes or eras in her life. So whether you love Taylor or you don't love her, God forbid, whether you're an avid Swiftie or not, we don't care. We want you to enter because we're not asking you to do Taylor cookies. In fact, we definitely don't want you to use Taylor logos and branded Taylor stuff. We want you simply to talk about yourself and those important eras or times in your life and express them through your cookie entries. It's really as simple as that. The only requirement is that you express that theme with the minimum number of cookies required for the category you enter, be it 2D or 3D. 2D, I think we have a 1 cookie minimum. For 3D, it has to be a 12 cookie construction. So again, you're just expressing kind of your most personal or most meaningful times of life through your cookies. It doesn't need to be plural. Actually, I said times of life. You could just do 1. And you could develop that really fully with a number of cookies or with 1 big cookie, So lots of flexibility here. We want it to be fun. We don't want you to feel kind of hemmed in by the theme. And we felt that the degree of I would also say that our judges in general, getting back to what our judges look for, and one thing Susan mentioned earlier, is we love it when the cookies express a story. And we felt this theme really teed you up to do nothing but express a story. It's all about expressing your personal story. So I hope that's clear. What we do not want to see are Taylor Swift copyrighted materials because they're not allowed in the competition, nor is any copyrighted art or copied art. We want you to be original. So I hope that clears it up. Oh, I have one example or two of what I mean by that. And if you saw my social media feed a couple of days ago, I posted some pictures of my garden. I'm an avid gardener when I'm not cooking. And so if I were to enter this competition, I might enter something that surrounds my gardening era or my flower era. I could construct a whole 3D garden if I wanted to. I could construct 2D flower cookies. So that might be one thing I would do. I'm not saying you should do it because whatever you do should be personal to you, but I just wanted to give you a really tangible example of what that might be. Also, I'm wearing my very own Cookie Era bracelet. It was given to me by one of my cookie competition's most active competitors, and I think you'll be hearing about her in another week in another video. But it says my Cookie Era, and I could also cookie something in this era. I would say that I had a really good April last month. Lots of nice things happened to me, so I could choose to make my cookies some personal expression of that. So, just get creative with what you do.
I think it's a great theme. It's so open, and it's going to be really interesting for your judges to look at all those pieces and read the outlines of what people have created for
Right.
their.
One thing I should say, when the examples that I gave, I was talking about cookies that I could do. And in fact, I've done many of those cookies already. I've done a lot of flower cookies. You've probably seen my garden arbor cookie or my garden topiary cookie. We want you not to do something we don't want you to choose an era and fit old cookies to it. I will say that the cookies you bring to this competition have to be new and tailored to the theme. And we do that, again, to somewhat level the playing field. So everybody's coming at it with the same mindset and the same set of conditions. We think that makes for a fairer process, and also an interesting one for the judges too, as you said.
I have just a couple more quick questions. Do people need to register to enter by a certain date?
Okay, good question. So there's a nomenclature thing going on here, which might be a little confusing. So I will clarify that. We have a 2-step process for entering the competition. The first stage is registering. And that's simply paying a $15 entry fee, USD, per entry to declare that you're going to enter. So you pay the fee, you enter your name and email address, contact information. At that point, you do not need to submit an entry. The benefit of registering and registering early is because once you register, you'll receive access to all the databases where the entries ultimately get uploaded. So you'll have the ability to go in them, look at them, play around with them, practice uploading, and just get familiar with them so that when the time comes to upload, they're not a complete surprise to you. So registering, declaring intent to enter, gaining access to the entry databases is first step. That happens on my event platform, Eventbrite. A lot of people use it for payments for events. The upload process, this happens by June 30th. So there is a deadline for that. There's no deadline for registering. You can do it whenever, provided you do it before you upload your entry. And that happens on June 30th. That's the entry deadline. That's when all your materials need to be submitted into those databases onto my site cookie connection. It's a really simple process. I will also say that even though you gain access to the physical databases through the registration process, I do have a document that you can click on in the competition overview post. It's at the very bottom of it, that lists all the submission requirements for 2D and 3D. So even without seeing the databases, you'll know exactly what you need to upload before you ever get to that point. There are about 20 things on each sheet. Might sound like a lot, but I'd say 4 or 5 are just basic name, phone number, things like that I use if I need to contact people. The names will all be blinded so that the judges don't know whose material they're judging. Then there are probably 10 to 12 photos for each. They're all photos of the same entry. They're just photos of the entry taken from different angles. We do require one video that gives us a full 360-degree view. It has to be very short in order to upload. So it's really a simple thing just you take on your phone to give us a sense of what your piece looks like from all angles, which is especially important for 3D. And then other than that, they're just 2 areas where you get to explain things. You explain your interpretation of your theme, how the theme manifested itself in your cookies. And you also explain any key tools or techniques you use. This is where you put new techniques you played with, that sort of thing. Things you want to call out to the judges to make sure they're sure to tune into. So it's actually a pretty straightforward process. Susie Jacobs talked about it in her video last week and how she tackles or how she approaches the upload process. Again, she just prints the list out and uses it as a checklist, so keeps her on track.
Yeah.
So long story short, no entry date to register. There is an entry date to upload, June 30th. However, I do love it when people register early. Not only does it give you access to the databases, but it makes my life a lot smoother because there are a lot of things after you enter that happen in the competition that I need to plan. So if I know how many people are roughly entering sooner, it just gives me just a better ability to plan, if you will. So,
well, you covered my next question. So I'm going to skip to my last one. So there's 2 categories, flat 2D cookies and 3D. And with those, there are 2 divisions, being beginner intermediate and advanced master. What is the criteria for those? What makes somebody considered a beginner or intermediate, and what makes them advanced or master?
Well, those criteria are also spelled out in that master competition overview. So when in doubt, go there first, because I tell you what, it probably answers every question imaginable about the competition. But I know it can sometimes be hard to pick up on everything. This is probably one of the questions that's most personal and where people have individual circumstances that require getting me involved. Because it's not black and white necessarily. There's a gray line, especially when you're progressing from intermediate to advanced. So we consider anyone beginner or intermediate, someone with less than 5 years of cookie decorating experience who considers that they're developing their skills, or others consider that they are. However, if they've placed in a previous cookie decorating competition, they get moved up into the next level. So that's in the next level is advanced master. So it might sound like a big leap, and that's usually where people are calling me and saying, am I really advanced master or am I really beginner intermediate? And we might have a discussion about that. But my feeling is if someone has placed in my competition before, they've really demonstrated themselves, and they're probably most certainly in the advanced
Yeah.
situation. So we also would place in the advanced category anybody that's a well-known cookie decorating instructor, even if they haven't competed, where they're considered a master at a particular technique. We'd put them in that category. I had one, here's an example of a kind of a gray area. Somebody emailed me and said, hey, I just placed in a competition. It was for my booth where I sell cookies at a show. And yet I've only really been decorating for 3 years. And the award was really more for the display of my booth and not my cookies in the booth. And I said, yeah, I would put you in beginner intermediate because I'm talking about having won in a cookie decorating competition, where you're judged on your cookie art and your techniques. In her case, the competition was something completely different entirely, or related, but somewhat different. So when they're
I do
questions like
find,
when they're questions
sorry, go.
like that, I do encourage people just to email me, and I'll gather some more information. Maybe I might look at their work that they have
You
posted
know,
online, and I'll help them decide.
guys, if Julia puts you in the advanced master category, don't be afraid of that.
I
Just,
did that with
I
somebody.
find a lot of people are scared to make that jump, and it's really not very scary. I've been to competitions where some of the beginner work was amazing, and some of the
Yes.
advanced felt, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there was some room to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to make that jump.
Mm-hmm. And there's always a
That means,
spectrum in it because it could be there's like a beginning decorator that comes out of nowhere who just
yeah,
happens to be really talented. Um,
right,
so so anyway, I actually did just put somebody into the advanced. I went and looked at their work. I hope it was taken as a huge compliment because I went and looked at the work and I said,
right.
okay, you might only be decorating for 3 years, but you did place in this other competition, and there's a reason you placed in the competition. Your work's really great, so you would be appropriately placed in the advanced master category. The other thing is, in the position I'm in with this online competition, I'm not judging, so I'm not going to be scoring. My judges are, because as I said, we score blind so that we don't know people's entries. However, I'm receiving them all in this case. I'm going to see people's names attached with them. I'm going to know who's who. So I have a pretty good vantage point, having done that a few times online, to really know the spectrum of work that comes in and kind of where it falls out. So I feel like if you have questions, I'm a pretty good evaluator of where it should fit in our competition to be judged fairly, because that's the end goal. We don't want to put you in a category where you're going to have no chance of succeeding in, nor do we want to put you in a category that you're going to just eclipse everybody else in there because you have such
Yeah,
tremendous skills. We want to, keep the playing field level and give everybody a fair shot based on their skill level.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you. I know that some of those questions came to you having read our rules online, I believe, and also talking to people in the community. So I'm going to be doing a few more of these conversations with other sponsors to kind of get a read on what they're hearing out there and to see if there are any further questions that we can answer. I feel like we've covered a lot though today, and I really thank you for that.
Oh, and I'm going to do my part to encourage people to enter this competition. I think it's a great one. And the fact that no one has to drive across the country with their cookies is just amazing. So,
I know that's the other low risk part of it. I said it's low risk because nobody needs to know you entered, but you don't have to worry about transporting it and it falling apart before it gets to the table. So
everybody take
consider that a
really
lucky break.
nice photos. Nice photos. You're not getting judged on your photography skills, but
Correct.
make sure that all of your details are photographed fairly well, natural light, all the good things. And I look forward to seeing everybody's cookies. I really do.
Thank you so much, Susan. I've got to thank you once again for not only being a terrific supporter of the competition in doing this video with me, in sharing your thoughts, but also in the tremendous financial contribution you've made to our prizes this year and in previous years. Really, really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I support good stuff.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, well, I'll be seeing you hopefully online. And
Yep.
if you have questions about this session, feel free to email me. Feel free to email Susan. We're happy to chat with you at any time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye now.